Hello everyone and welcome to my oil painting class. And today we're painting the facade of Selby Abbey, Selby Abbey Church. I've got a challenging task, but at the same time I'd like to show you how it could be simplified. So I'd like to start with a tonal study, very simple shapes. I'd like to find, and then we'll translate it into our painting. I'm using the orange background. I've got quite a dull photograph, overcast day, quite a plain greyish ochre type of color for the cathedral, but I'd like it to make more sunny, a bit more attractive, a bit more exciting in color. I think I'd like to bring a bit more color to the sky as well. So I'm going to do my own version of it. But I've got an idea of possible composition. So the orange background will help me with bringing the stone color and also the greens. So don't be scared of painting on the orange. If you've got a slightly lighter background, if you've got more of a yellowish orange or reddish orange, any of those versions will be fine as well. Also got a bit of a cloth for some larger shapes applications. And yes, on my palette, if I'll start with some white and black, I've got Payne's Grey, and then I'll talk you through the rest of the colors when we get to use them. So first I'm going to use a bit of tips and my black and white. So let's plan overall shapes. I already have a medium darkness. So again, if I were to divide my tones into very basic ones, and here we can see it much more clear than maybe in our previous sessions. I can see a very clear white on my picture, which will be the sky. Okay, so I'm just putting a direct white here. I'm going to keep my gray as it is, as my prime color. And I'm going to use direct black as the trees. The green lawn is probably the same darkness as the cathedral, so that will be my medium gray. And my trees will be black. So I need to find the silhouette of my sky and the silhouette of my trees. So I'm going to use, I'm actually probably going to use a bigger brush, maybe something like this one. Okay, so I can apply color very quickly. I'm going to start with some white. I'm going to just soften it. It's quite a tough, thick paint. So I'm just using some tips for quick application. This is a sketch, so I don't have to use my 3 oils mixture. This is just for quick use. It's with dilute paint. I'm not interested in how perfectly the surface is going to be when it dries. Okay, just mixing my white. And what I'd like to do, I'm going to paint 2 designs, 2 compositions. I'd like to see one where I can just see a little bit more sky around my cathedral, and I'm changing it to perhaps from more of a rectangular shape to more of a square shape. So imagine this image extended slightly taller, so I can fit the towers, have a little bit of extra sky. I think that will be just enough to represent that shape. And my second piece, I'd like to make the cathedral further away from me, so I'll see more of the surrounding area, more of the lawn, more of the sky, and kind of have it more distant away. So this one is a little bit similar to begin with. So perhaps if I were to plan my little triangle front just to get that silhouette. Now this is going to be approximate and quick. That's why it's going to be a sketch and it's a plan. Okay, if so there are any issues, okay, so that will be addressed in larger painting. But let's just find overall shapes. So I'm thinking of the space of the sky. Okay, that's going to be maybe a bit of an interesting shape for my tree. Okay, maybe that gap is going to get slightly bigger. Okay, if my towers are slightly different size, it's not a big deal at the moment. Okay, so I have enough sky there. That will take me a little bit more further. I'm looking at a range of space between the cathedral wall and the tree. Just interesting perhaps in that silhouette, so it's not too flat. Okay, here maybe just extending it a bit more lower, and I'm just deciding how low those trees are going to be on the right hand side. Maybe I don't want them to be too low as they're in the photograph, maybe just a little bit closer. Okay, somewhere there. Okay, I'm gonna leave my white brush aside. Now the paint is not super thick. This is a bit thicker, so it's a little bit patchy. But I'm not too worried about it. This is mainly for seeing an overall shape. Okay, so right, that's good. Before I go to my black, I want to straight away think about my second design. Again, just pre-mixing some more white. So this time I want to do something similar, but it's going to be much smaller. So this time I'm going to find maybe a silhouette of my cathedral as a whole shape first. Okay, so that's going to be too narrow, maybe a little bit too narrow. Tiny bit wider, that's probably enough. Okay, so I'm gonna do my left and right hand side. Okay, so I'll have more sky here. So that's the end of my picture. And then the towers. Okay, somewhere here. And then that's a triangle. Somewhere here. Okay. And then I can make a little towers here that way. It's quite nice painting the cathedral on grey background, little bits of those strokes of white against the grey. Gives me quite a lovely snow-like effect, a frost effect. Feels quite Christmassy with that. Maybe an idea for the future. Right, and then I'd like my tree to be overhanging maybe a bit more. And I would like to maybe play with the shape of that sky a little bit more different. So kind of it goes in a bit further. Okay, maybe that would be something else interesting. And then let's look at this side. Maybe deliberately further away first, and then working into larger steps of shape after. Right, so now let's tidy this up. Let's paint a big block of light. Okay, and these shapes of trees might be a bit more exciting to look at later on. I'm not too sure about the variety here. Maybe I will do that if I were to pick up this design later on. Okay, that's quite good. And now I'm going to wipe my brush And you know what? I'm just gonna have a tiny little, just with a diluted white on my brush. Just want to find the base of my cathedral. Well, sorry, church, Abbey, Selby Abbey Church. It's quite a big shape. Could have been a cathedral. Right, and this one I'll show that I have quite a bit of space. The front walk, for the front gate. Yes, so it's gained me more space, smaller in size. That one's got a bit more shorter in size. I might even just do a little bit of subtone of my gray just to have an idea. Okay, something there. Right, and I want to clean this brush if I want to use it for my black. Okay, tiny bit more. There is a bit of white left. Oops. It's okay because the black will take over everything in the moment. Keep splashing my board. Okay. I can even go for reasonably diluted black because it's solid. It will be easier to apply, but it is quite solid in application. Right, so simplifying my shape of the tree. I already kind of planned my silhouette here, but I can improve it by putting extra, okay, maybe dabs for my tree here. Okay, maybe a little bit more retreating, sorry, here. Again, maybe coming up, out. And it's stopping there, a few tree trunks there, but they're stopping, and a few shadows there across as well for, maybe we'll keep them quite soft. Okay, and I'm going to keep these trees, and there is another structural shape next to, okay, maybe it's going a bit too low. Okay, there's something there. Okay, so that's something simple. And let's have a look at similar trees designs, but for a different composition. Okay, so again, quite nice to have a little bit of a rougher end for the brush, I think, because it's quite dry. It gives me a lovely texture at the same time. But a simple shape would have been good for plan here as well. Okay, and this time I might just be a little bit more accurate how much space I leave for. That's better. But I wanted to maybe improve on my volume of trees here. And perhaps putting it in something higher where I put it, I painted extra white back. So, okay, that's something exciting. Okay, so that's what's good about the designs. So we can move things about, adjust things. Okay, and as I've diluted a little bit of white, I can dilute a little bit of black. So I'm just wiping my brush, using a bit of tips to take some of the black off. And using just a bit of water, I can plan perhaps windows, some of the major, maybe key things for what we might want to have. Bit runny, maybe even the side of the path. Okay, something a bit more planning, a bit of subtones there. Okay, so again, just something more about suggestive. I quite like those subtones. Okay. Maybe that gives me an opportunity to think of other subtones on the lawn. Maybe extra shadows. Might have a tree standing up. I quite like that idea. So for this one, I might put the shadow across. Yes, I'm just using my imagination a little bit more to suggest a few other things in there. Yeah, that's looking quite good. So I have a little bit more zoomed out view where I see more of the environment where the cathedral, sorry, where the church is, and seeing more of the overview of Selby. I can plan perhaps the whole garden area around it, yeah, the whole surrounding space. Where here I'm a little bit more zoomed in, so I'm more interested maybe in architectural elements, more into the windows, more into the details of the stone, rather than the whole environment, yeah? So both designs will be equally wonderful. It depends what message we want to show, okay? Want to paint. I think on this occasion, I'm going to stay with a larger zoomed in version, but definitely slightly bigger space than what my photograph is. That's what I was trying to do here. Yeah, so I can focus on that lovely playfulness of texture of the church, sorry, but also showing some of those lovely trees. I like that, but that's kind of closed in, so it's a more closed in view. Right, and you can decide which one you want to do. We'll approach it in a similar way from colors and tone. But if you were to pick up another design, this will be wonderful to compare. So be brave if you wish to do that. If you wish to go with that design, go for it. Don't be scared. Right, I'm just washing my brush and I'm going to start on my composition on my line. Now, usually when I paint on an orange background, I quite like using violet as my color to sketch the outlines. But I'd like us to think, look how easy it was for us to paint, yeah, the silhouette of the whole shape of the cathedral. Now, I can also now tweak and make a decision if I haven't made a conscious decision. Where do I want the cathedral to Abbey Church to be? More central one? I think if we were to move it a little bit towards the right, it will allow us to have tiny bit more space for the tree. Okay, so if I were to place something here as my picture, yeah, sorry, as my border, and maybe gain a little bit more of that tree so that I can have more of that size of the tree. Right, so if my shape of the facade is somewhere here, okay, let's find it. Size approximately somewhere here. Let's what I also have done here, I've done a little bit of a third point perspective when I'm standing really low and the camera is picking up that perspective where eventually the two parallel lines in this perspective will eventually meet somewhere up in the sky. So I'm just making them tiny bit more narrowing down. But if I use the center of the facade as a central line, so then they're equally similar. If you were to paint them parallel, perfectly parallel, that will be absolutely fine as well. So I'm going to paint them reasonably straight. Maybe this is a little bit less straight, so I will straighten it up. So there will be a very gentle effect of that third point of perspective, but not too big. Right, and let's find how much space we're going to have for the lawn. Okay, maybe top line is better. And then I can tweak how much is it wide, is the facade is wide enough. But I'm also including the tops, the towers. So if that is going to be the main heavy part of the church. Okay, just having a little check here. Okay, and then I can tweak the size of my towers. And there are some steps leading to the side, so they're looking narrower there. Okay, I haven't decided on its proportions yet. Okay, somewhere there. Okay, I'm just going to make it a tiny bit more straighter. Okay, just double check my central line. Easier to compare sometimes that side with this side rather than having just left and right lines in. It's harder to compare them independently. Okay, let's just double check this is still straight. It doesn't help that my camera slightly change the angle of my whole picture as well a little bit. Right, I think that's as straight-ish for now. So big shape there first. We're going to have a look where those towers are going to be, and if they are, okay, they might just come in a little bit more narrow in. So they will be in a similar height. Okay, and that's my little pointer as well. Right, and now let's divide the whole. Right, before I go further into my design of the facade, let's have a look at the trees. Let's have a look how much space we'll have here. I do love that branch overlapping, so maybe planning it over or bearing it in mind and painting it later might be a good idea. Then I put a narrower space next to the church, and then there is a lovely, okay, narrower, and then there's a lovely step away. So I'm looking which kind of pattern I picked up better. Yeah, what would be a good idea? Is it going to be better higher up? Is it going to be better lower down, where that space is going to be opening up? What type of shape it's going to be? Where the widest part is going to be, where the narrowest part is going to be, where the heaviest, yeah? How it's going to be building up. I think making it a little bit more heavier higher up, and getting narrow somewhere else again here will be better. So then it explains the shape of the tree. Okay, and if that is the line the church stands, the facade is, the back of the church, the back of the yard, churchyard is going to be quite far away, and there'll be houses there. So it means that my trees will need to be between those. If I were to put any tree trunks, mainly need the tree trunks, which I don't really need to paint. Just want to show you what I'm doing it for. I need them for shadows. So if I were to place some tree trunks, let's say, I need to make sure that they are within, not below that line. Okay, maybe if there is one, it's not too far away. Okay, it might be just quite close to it. So then my shadows will be all coming that way. I enjoyed seeing another tree shadow. So there were some trees further away. It's kind of an open space in front of the Abbey Church. So the shadows from much further away trees could come here. Okay. So that's will be quite nice. Okay. And that tree looks like it's right in front. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Again, something to consider. So that's looking quite exciting shape. I said I wanted to have perhaps even more of that tree here. So can I move it a tiny bit more closer? Okay, perhaps tiny bit more closer. All these lovely things to consider. Right, let's have a look now on the other side. And we have a little extra structure. I think these are some of the offices, well, currently used as the Reverend's office. Somewhere here, outbuildings. They're still decorated lovely, especially on the other side. They're lovely designs architecturally with the same Gothic arches and everything else in there. But I don't want to make it too significant. I think it might be a little bit too big, especially if I start making comparisons with the three shapes within the Abbey. Okay. With an Abbey design. Good. I think maybe my Abbey will have to be a tiny bit more wider. Let's see. Maybe okay. Right, and trees at the back. So again, if I were to continue that line, it gives me a space. There's some sort of shadow there as well. Can just about see it there. And how tall the trees are going to be. Maybe not taller than halfway through my facade. Okay, somewhere here, and it's coming maybe behind there as well. Okay, lovely. Sorry, I haven't commented on my pencil lines. This is where I want my picture to be. Might use a little bit, but I probably will stop before that line. Gives me a bit more space for mounting the picture as well. I'm just experimenting with it. Here, right, so that's good. I'm happy with that. I think yes. Okay. And we have now the whole facade. Let's divide into three main elements. So we've got the central element and we've got the two towers. Now they're not quite straightforward three shapes. There are sub-shapes to them. So if I were to keep them as simplified three, that will be easier to see where we are. So my top of the triangle here is actually a little bit narrower. Now I'm going to try to keep it simple. Okay, we've got something here as central shapes. Again, smudging the lines, giving me a quick structure. Okay. Sometimes smudging it becomes straighter, becomes easier to shape up. Also, it reminded me here that the lawn could go a tiny bit higher actually in comparison to the front gate, because that lawn is raised. So you'll start seeing that the door is slightly lower than the sides here. Again, that's quite a minor thing. If you were to observe it, it's there, so that could go higher up. That could be my shadow of another tree if needed. Okay, and that could give me a path, an arch, a central arch. Okay. The more we're going to be zooming in into details like windows, different openings, combinations of groupings of windows, decorative things, the more we'll want to be precise. So let's stay within big shapes still. So let's find some horizontal divisions now. There are a couple of lines which come across all the way from left to right. So for example, this one, which kind of shows the base of my triangle somewhere here, perhaps, and comes across the two towers. And the towers have a little bit more division of something above. That might be too wide. Okay, so let's do it quick provisional so we can adjust things. Okay. Another line which is important is the line under our main window. Most gorgeous window, stained glass window we see from inside. And this line doesn't continue on the towers, but it continues tiny bit above, just on the towers. Okay. This one's got a lovely roll as well. Okay. And then just double checking if that is still big enough. Or if it could go slightly high. I'm going to draw one of these arches here, because that looks a little bit short. So if one of the windows is going to be here, then it gives me an opportunity to have a little reference point to sizes of the window. That's looking better. That still could go tiny bit higher. That could be just going tiny bit higher. Then the front entrance will be slightly bigger. So then all of that space could go somewhere here, and the actual door is staying about there. Okay. Not too worried about some of the wobbly lines. Quite runny paint, so that will be easily tweaked when we start using thicker paint. Okay. Good. Right, and so what I'm going to do next, that's giving me more or less proportion I want for my facade. Before I do any more details on the windows, I want to adjust left and right side of the facade. So if our towers start slightly narrower, okay, I'm just going to just adjust the sizes on the sides. We can see little steps down as different supporting architectural elements start standing away. Okay, bulking it up a little bit. So that's a bit better, a bit more exciting. And also it will reinforce that third point of perspective. So a little bit stepping out and then slightly wider again. And then somewhere this point again slightly wider. So it's all to do with keeping the church structurally sound, stable. Okay. Keeping the ceiling tall, but walls strong. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. So then I can bring these windows in. I can bring these shapes in. And now I'll start looking for more symmetry. If my windows are slightly different to the size of the photo, it doesn't matter. But if they're more symmetrical in place and more accurate to each kind of in comparison to each other, that will be more important. Okay, that's what stay there. That's one wanted to go a bit lower. Or did I lift that one up? Sorry, I think I've lifted that one up a little. So that could be lifted. And sometimes little extra lines on our drawing gives it Gothic texture. So don't over complicate things. Don't over worry about a lot of lines. Okay, this window is going to be very dark, so it will see it stronger. These windows will be mainly light, so they will appear much smaller because they'll be hiding within the design. Okay. And just double checking heights here. Okay, towers. Maybe we see another part of the tower on the back. Maybe a tiny bit shorter. Okay, maybe a little extra buttons on top of the, almost like a balcony space. Okay, and where those windows segmenting base for the top layer of the towers, somewhere there. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. That's going to be widening up down a bit more here. So when I'll be painting the stone, the architectural elements, I'm not going to be painting each individual. Okay, I've got a tower here, I've got little sub towers, I've got another flat, I've got another. I will be painting it like that first, as a big shape and understanding of its stone, and then I'll play on some of the nuances. I'm going to try to create like a jewel of the stone surface for the for the church facade. And some of these shadows even could go a bit more down. That's where the darkness is going to be. Okay. Good, 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 good. And we have quite a bit of space for the sky, so we can play with some of the lovely blues there as well. Okay. I'm happy with that. I'm going to stop with my drawing. And we're going to start getting some paints out for the darker tree here. All of that. So now I'd like us to start thinking of our shapes. So we've got our sky, we've got our cathedral, we've got our greens for the lawn, kind of the same darkness, but we'll have different colors and slightly different textures in it. And then trees. So four elements. I want us to think still big shapes. If I'm planning the sky, can I plan some colors out first? So I'm just going to turn this one around so it's not a mucky end while I'm mixing some of the samples of color. I'll start with some white for my sky. And I'm going to use some ultramarine. Okay, so let's add the ultramarine here. So for example, for my sky, I'm going to have some of ultramarine and white. I'm going to have some of cerulean blue and white, and the mixture of the two blues. Okay, I'm sorry, my other color went a bit too high up. Okay, I'll keep it there, but my camera gently up. Okay. And then variations of these colors being lighter. I also can use a bit of buff titanium for my sky, so that's my other lighter color. Buff titanium will have a slightly warmer color in comparison to my blues. So this is just direct buff titanium. It's already got quite a bit of white. So often I use ochre and violet to have a bit of warmth into the clouds. I think just using buff titanium on its own and buff titanium and a little bit of white. And of course I can still use some white. Any of those colors will be lovely. So I'm actually going to start with my direct buff titanium. Right, so let's put my tapes under the lid. So let's go for solid buff titanium. It's a lovely paint mixture here for me. It's a lovely softer paint. It's not runny unless I have quite a bit of oil. Okay, but it's quite nice. And let's plan where maybe some of the lighter parts of the cloud's going to be. We can still use some white on top of it, but first I wanted to have big shapes of paler color. Okay, I can even come closer to my facade here. Just of the little block and finding out spaces. Okay. So my cloud light space is going to be somewhere here, and then it might just die out. and then maybe it will come out, that warmth of it will come out somewhere here. Now I used reasonably thin layer. If you want to use a cloth, I'm actually using an old single sock, which is lovely and soft, easy to wrap around your finger, and you can rub that paint in so you see a little bit more transparency of the background, and as well as you will have a thinner layer. It will be easier for you to apply extra white, and it will be easier for you to apply blue over it and mix the colors. I'm just going to top up some extra white here as well. Okay, so this reasonably dark direct buff titanium. So if I look at it here against my palette white, it's quite dark. Against my orange background, it's very pale. So my lighter tones will need to come in with whites and paler colors as well. Right, so let's have a tiny bit more white with my buff titanium. If you don't have buff titanium, I should have said it earlier, sorry. You could use some ochre and a small dab of violet. It will give you a very similar color. Just takes a moment longer to mix it when buff titanium just comes out of the tube. Right, so I'm just adding a bit more white. And again, let's find where that paler color is going to be. Just big strokes. I'll want to put some fresher whites maybe later on. So far, I just want to apply it a little bit more wacky. Okay. You can paint over the towers, but I think if I'll leave them out earlier on, kind of paint around them, I'm not going to lose their size. And then later on, I could be a bit more playful. Okay, so something in there. It's quite nice to have some of the violet smudging in there as well. Okay, maybe a little bit of fresher white. So that violet from my pen, from my contour lines gives a good mixture. Remember I said I would be mixing if I wouldn't have had buff titanium, I would have used ochre and violet. So that's what it does. It's mixes here and gives me a little extra. Okay, a bit of something there. I'm just going to wipe my brush. Oops, that's my painting tool, my cloth. Okay, I'm just going to wipe my brush. Okay, I don't really need to clean it with stirps, so make it perfectly clean. And I'm going to load it with my oils. I'm going to go for my blues. Okay, starting with the white. By applying, well, picking up white and mixing it well with my oil. Almost cleans the brush. Okay. And I'm going to start with a lighter blue with the cerulean, a bit more turquoise-like blue. Okay, I'll use my ultramarine slightly later on. So I'd like to bring it in somewhere lower to mid-ground of the sky. And the lower it will go, start being paler, so I'm adding a bit more white to it here. Okay, let's just double check I've got the silhouette. Okay, it's more or less sorted. Maybe have a little hint of paler cerulean and white lower. Okay, nice big chunky strokes, maybe some more paler color here. Okay. I'm not scared of going slightly thicker strokes now as well. Okay, tiny bit more blue as I'm going up. Tiny bit more still going up. And I want to blend these ones, perhaps see how it's going to happen. Blend it with that buff titanium. Get a bit more of a flatter surface. So I can bring some fresher white here. Nice, lovely chunks. At the same time, blend them in, kind of apply them quite freshly, quite vigorously, creating that different scale clouds. Some thinner strokes, maybe close to the horizon. I know it's quite far away to detect any shapes of clouds, and especially not on my photograph, so I'm improvising the atmosphere there in the sky. Okay, I just got that lovely texture for it. And for the higher point of sky, let's bring a little bit more ultramarine. Now this is quite a dark paint, so let's have some more white. You can mix ultramarine with cerulean blue. Okay, I'm gonna put it as it is and see how that's supposed to. I think it's going to be too strong. Yes, but I can always tone it down in light. Still a little bit too strong. Okay, it's a bit better. So if I block it in first and then I blend it and merge it better with my warmer layer. Okay, just want to see the whole shape here together. So block, 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 and then play with effects. Can put a little bit of extra of that blue behind the tree. Okay, not forgetting all of this space, maybe a little bit more white. As I'm slightly going lower, that blue will be becoming paler. And a tiny bit more paler. So I'm still blocking, blocking, blocking. I haven't stopped to look at the whole picture yet. Okay. Now, can I use some of my paler version of ultramarine somewhere under my cloud here? Maybe a tiny bit more on this side because it's quite runny paint. It's okay, that's still quite dark. I just blend it within the color here so it's not stand. Okay, that's better. Okay, maybe somewhere there. Okay, we've got some lovely bold sunshine suddenly. I'll just gently soften that, maybe bring a little gap within my cloud. Okay, maybe. Okay, I did say I haven't decided if I'm going to trim it or use the full depth. Right, this is quite exciting little patch of white. Good. Any of that can it just be a little ready to go under the tree? Just a little bit ready to go under the tree. Okay, again, it's good. It's quite nice, exciting light. Maybe tiny bit more for the sky. I think if I would bring my lighter buff titanium in, just for a couple of strokes. I'm just washing my brush with dibs because it has stronger blue on it. Back to my oil, bit of white, a little bit of that buff titanium from the palette. It probably will be enough. If not, tiny bit more. Okay, just want to have a slightly thicker paint so it's good go. If it's a runnier paint, it wouldn't sit on top of the blue. It will just slime away. Okay, so somewhere, maybe here a little something, and I wanted to connect here a little more. Okay. That's good. Anything else slightly darker of this color? It feels it's could come up. Just give it a little extra three-dimensional feel here. Good, 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 good. Right, and final bit for my clouds. We've got 1, 2, 3 very similar blocks. I just partially smudge them. Okay, if that blue, okay, gone up. And a lot paler color. Just want to have slightly more variety here. Okay, a bit better. Good. Right, I think I'm happy to stop for the sky. Just double check that you don't have your cathedral lines. You haven't got big gaps, you know. Let's say this is my cathedral line, this is my sky, yeah? Is that the actual, is a cathedral is going to be too, sorry, the facade of the church is going to be too wide? Do I need to bring that blue closer or not? It's a little harder to do it later because you'll run out of your blue of the same color. So I might just bring it slightly closer deliberately, and I haven't done it here. Okay. And even perhaps down a bit more here, even if it's too narrow. I prefer it to be too narrow, slightly narrower than I need to. Okay, some of my violet contour lines are quite heavy, so that's all good. So these are just little technical improvements. Right, that's okay. I'm happy there now. Right, anything else for the distant light? No, I think it's okay. Do I need to put any more of that light? Let's just bring it a little bit lower so it's more of a significant change, and then evaluate later on. Okay, is it too busy here? Perhaps even a fresher white to create that contrast between the shadow of the tree and the sky. Okay. Sky, clouds, I think are done. Let's move on to our trees. Same like I painted white, I painted black, and then I worked into medium tones. So it will give us a lovely contrast. Right, next step. So we've done our lights. Can we do our darks? First of all, let's mix some ranges of greens within a dark tone. So I just got some oil on my brush, and I'll start with some emerald green, which is very fluorescent emerald on its own. But if I add some ochre to it, that will calm it down, but it looks way too pale. It looks quite similar to my olive green. So if I use ochre as my white in a way, so it doesn't make my colors too pale. So ochre is has less white in it, but it's made my color opaque. Then I can mix some violet to my green. So now I'm coming to my darker tones. Okay, so violet with emerald green and ochre. So I've got one dark option. Sorry if I'll just paint a bit lower. Okay. This is my pale option. There's a little bit of violet, but not too much. And I can also use a bit of blue. So small amount of blue. If it's too dark, again, I can use a hint of ochre. But sorry, that's violet. I don't want blue. So I'm using ultramarine blue, sorry. Okay, again, it will give me a lovely texture and feel for the blue, a bit more cooler version of it. And these are painted on the white surface. Let's see what we can do it on the orange surface. So I'm just I've got my last blue, any of the darker blue, green, sorry, will be good. So mine is the last one was emerald green, ochre, and ultramarine. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna almost rub it in. It's quite a bit of paint, loose paint, runny paint. Can use some extra oil so it becomes even runnier. Almost how I painted the trees here. Just want to block it in. Okay. There are already some variations. Depends how I'm pressing on my brush. Some paler paint comes out, some more fresh oil comes out. So it keeps the paint more diluted. And some obviously darker color comes through as well. Now I'll have some paler colored top, so I can use my ochre with this group of greens. Again, I want to paint a little bit more runnier for the trees. Okay, I'm going to rub it into my orange, trying to see some of that color through. Again, I can help myself with just going to wipe some paint from my brush onto my cloth and see if I can just apply some of it here as well. Okay, so that gives me that orangey background showing through. It gives me a lighter color for the trees so that I can go darker over it very easily. So I'm almost painting the tree in the sunlight or more of a sunlit area. This is quite a nice smudge. This is the less nice one. Okay, and perhaps some more of that here. Ah, that's where I'm picking it up from my glove. I thought I'm introducing extra somehow. Okay, so using the cloth allows me to show more of the orange background. It also smudges some of the violet outlines, which is wonderful to see. Wonderful, wonderful to see. Okay, some of the, if I'll paint over white, it might be harder to show the color, so I might use a brush here. Okay. Good. Any softer edges? My brush is now picking up a little bit of white from the sky and smudges it. So I need to keep cleaning it and smudges it into the trees. So we see more softer border of the trees. Now I wanted to stop my picture there, but I think it's working so well. I'll keep that one there. I wanted a little bit of that paler white coming in, so maybe some fresher color, maybe back to that buff titanium. Okay, and then I can paint my green slightly over it. Just want to find a more pleasant gap between the two trees. The tricky part when we border in green and white for our sky is that our green becomes cooler and opaque. I want to see more of the warmth within the green, so keep using a bit of violet within your green. That's just improved that one from what I was bringing the white, so the white in. Okay, that's a bit better. Right, and I can now paint. Want to paint a little bit more lighter color of green under my trees because the shadow will come in quite dark. So good noticing that. So a little bit more ochre, a little bit more oil, but my pot is mucky, so I'm going to quickly wipe my pot and get more fresh oil on it. So keeping things clean will keep your colors clean. So I would tend to have a small pot for the 3 oils so we can clean it up from time to time and get some fresh oil. Right, so I needed some more runnier ochre and green mixture. Could have used that olive green, but that's, I think, might be straightforward here. Maybe a tiny bit more direct ochre and see. That will give me a fresh look there as well. Okay. I have a little reference for it as I've started to apply it here. I can see a little reference of it somewhere here. Maybe on that bank. Possibly. Okay. And then I want to go much darker. So that was another version of my greens. Doesn't mean that it has to stay everywhere in the trees. Can I bring it anywhere else on my trees? That paler green. I'm trying to find more wackier strokes for shapes of branches. Okay, I'm trying to apply a slightly thicker layer of paint so it sits against the runny surfaces of the first layer of paint. Okay, that's nice. A little bit too thinner here, maybe, like a line. Okay, that's a bit better. It's more distant trees, so let's keep them simplified there. Right, and I'm ready for my extra darks, those ones I was mixing earlier. So I need to have my, getting back to more runnier paint. So I've got more oil, I need more emerald green. Let's have some blue, let's have some violet, let's have a little bit more distinctive color. One with violet, one with a blue. Okay, let's start with a violetty one. Now, because it's runny, it will interact with my existing paints. So let's have a nice shadow somewhere here. I'm going to apply it via strokes. Okay, almost like painting under some of the lighter surface we've created. I'm not too much thinking about my silhouette of the sky because I've shaped it up. I'm going to forget about it for a moment. I'm going to mainly work within the green, and then I'll pay a little bit more attention and see if it needs tweaking or if it's got an odd shape, if it's a lovely shape. Yeah, what's there. So I'm working now with my darks. Let's see what's lower parts of the shadows might look like. Okay, that lovely violet is still here. Maybe I'll put a tree trunk. It will be more green or more violet or more whatever. Any of the variations would be good. For the other tree trunks, I need to make sure I have a thinner brush. I don't like them being chunky. Okay, I'm not too sure if I like that width. Okay. Let's put a little bit of extra blue. I think some of that could be lowered, and maybe that will be some of the shadows as well. And there might be a darker tree right at the back. Okay, so if you notice that I've just rubbed the stroke in, then back, so if it's smudges with the white, it's not giving me a whitish pale drag of color. Okay, I think this could stay low. Okay, that's still giving me that whitish feel. Okay, it's a bit better, but okay, it looks a bit too solid. The moment you smudge it, it becomes a distant tree, a distant shape, a less precise and pressure. That's better. That's so much better now. Okay, good. Maybe I balance it with another dark mark on the opposite side. Okay, somewhere there. Not still 100% happy with that shape, but let's now break it down. Okay, to that layer of darkness, let's reduce some of that light. but I'm going to watch the pattern of my darker strokes so they don't look like a leopard skin or just not connected to each other, and they're not, maybe the strokes are not too identical. I want them, some of them mingled with light and dark tones of the greens, and some of them I really want to stand out. Okay, this is a flat surface of the border. Can something here happen? Okay, bit too similar in smudgy strokes. Wasn't too happy with that border. Okay, if I'll keep smudging my sky, I might have to touch it up freshly. Okay, anything else here on the top? Okay, that's looking good. Nice dark tree, but with some lovely lights as well. While I'm focusing on this corner, I'm going to bring my fresher color for the sky back. Okay. It will also give me an opportunity to shape up any silhouette of the tree if I'm still not finalized that. This looks a little too perfect. Can I do a little gap or something? That's better. Looks a little too perfect border. Okay, it's better. And okay, that's better as well. Good. What I could do with another fresh white stroke somewhere here to balance and to tidy that freshness. Good. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's there, that's here. Got a bit of that movement, but it reads lovely and dark all together. That's good. So now we can focus on our medium darknesses, our cathedral, our facade of the church, and our lawn. Right, next one. I'm gonna go for my facade. I could go for the greens, but first of all, I might smudge it by accident. And secondly, I already got some greens to set support, so I want to see that warmth of the stone showing first. Then I can decide on final greens at the front. Maybe I'll make it more yellowish or maybe a bit more lighter. Maybe there will be some buttercups even, yeah. So it will dictate kind of, it could change depending on the color for the facade. Right, just double checking I've got enough paint and it's not too green here. So in my oil pot, I might have to give it a quick wipe. We don't want a lot of green on our stone. There will be some greenish layers. So I'm just cleaning my pot now. Right, ready to go. Clean oil. And I'm gonna go for the base color as my buff titanium. You know what? Yes, that's okay. I'll keep it here. Buff titanium. Now, remembering that my buff titanium was as light as my sky. So if this is going to be my base, it can't stay as light. Otherwise, sorry, it can't stay as light because it will disappear. It will become sky. So to make it more interesting and well deeper in tone, I'm gonna add some ochre and some violet. So that will become my foundation darkness and maybe foundation color. Okay, as if I would have painted it as overall block, yeah, the color for my facade, that's how I do it. But I will make varieties to it. So I can see this worms maybe somewhere here. So I'm just going to block it roughly and runny. Okay. If it's not super transparent, that's okay. But it is very soft. So I can see some newer, maybe that, or maybe they're just warmer stone. I'm going to put it strategically in well, not a couple of areas, in few areas, maybe around the windows. Okay. So then I can change the color. Okay, that's a little bit more cooler, maybe around somewhere here. Maybe around somewhere here. It doesn't always have to be symmetrical. We'll have a little varieties of color distribution within stone. Okay, so maybe somewhere here. Now it still appears reasonably light in comparison to the darkness of my orange background. So I do want to have more darker color present. So first I'm going to add more violet. So that variety, so that's changes here. Okay, and I can start adding it a little bit more to my color. It will smudge because my first layer was so soft. It will almost kind of give me small amount of that lighter color present, but it dilutes it a little bit, my darker color, but it's also kind of sits on it nicely. I can partially leave my violet outlines if you want to preserve a little bit of a dark edge, but I'm going to start with some being approximate. Okay, I'm not going to make a perfect outlines for the shape of the facade yet. Okay, some of it will be a bit more smudged. Right, so I'm working with this slightly darker violet color. Okay, so maybe the whole shape, maybe. I can go much darker later on. I'm just topping up the same darkness. Okay, somewhere here. Okay. So if you were to squint your eyes, where you might find those shapes? Don't be scared if your shapes might be in different places to mine. Okay, these are just suggestions. These are just possibilities. Okay. I want to mix some of the lighter tones here as well. So the lighter tones will start becoming more of an absorbed color with occasional glimpse of it as light. So it's becoming more of a smudge. So the whole shape of the facade becomes much better darkness, yeah? It's still quite pale. I think I could still go slightly darker in a few areas, but it will be in smaller quantities and it will be more natural in appearance. Yes, I want to add a bit more cooler color, but maybe a bit too early. Right, so I've used a little ultramarine by accident, but I think I can get going with that as well. So, small amount of ultramarine within our color will make it slightly darker, tiny bit darker. But also that stone color becomes slightly cooler. Right, let's see where we can place it here. I think that's where I want to have more of it. If I'm painting on top of previous layers, they might not appear dark with the new color. So I need to intensify the darkness even more before applying it. So let's mix a bit more. Okay, somewhere there. And using a softer, runnier paint at the early stage will give me opportunity to keep the facade much more soft and suggestive, not counting every most amazing detail. Okay, so that's more interesting. Well, let's bring a little bit of that darkness somewhere here. Just smudges beautifully. Okay, if you preserve some of the orange background here and there, that will be fantastic. Quite like how that one is glowing now. I think if I were to paint a big window, imagine if I painted with very runny, that pale ochre, and then put dark strokes to show the glass glass window gaps. It will probably give me a very narrow Gothic window frame. Right, the tops of the towers are cool, but they're slightly lighter. If I start them with the same darkness, okay, the same darkness on the clean surface appears even dark, so this is the color for to be painted on a wet surface more on a wet surface. Okay, anything else here? Okay, I wanted to have a tiny bit more darkness in here still. Will that do the trick? Okay, maybe the sides of the towers and the tops of them. If we paint in the tops of the very narrow elements like these pointy towers, don't be scared of creating wider strokes than we need to. I would prefer you go a little bit more spontaneous, a little bit more fresher color, a little bit more playful marks. We can come back and paint the sky and the little touches. Remember how I was touching up the border of the tree here? Something similar might be easier to do than trying to paint the corners too precisely. Okay, now I'm gonna go slightly paler on my colors, but I'm gonna stay with cool color. Now, if I use too much ochre, it will appear more of a green color, but if I want to have more blue, if I'll go for buff titanium, it will have that warmth, but blue will come through better. Okay, if I'll go for fresh blue, so buff titanium and ultramarine. Don't go for cerulean blue, you will definitely have green. Okay, that's a better color. Now I can start blocking some of that here as well. So that's my next color. Becomes more of finishing what's still plain, maybe a tiny bit paler. Okay, a bit too pale, maybe just not mixed. My towers started to look like angry owls. So I'll block them in and then I'll turn them into towers. Okay, easier to work on them. Runnier color. Tiny bit more paler tone for this area. You know what I might paint? I was thinking of pale ochre, but it's good paint with paler cool color as well. And then introduce darker inner layer. But look how that color works nicely. Maybe not in that volume, but I can see how it could be used into some quantity, into some small quantities. Yeah, it started shining. It started having that lovely, suggestive shapes. Okay, these little towers are gonna come up now. Okay, now against darker surfaces, I can get away with that lighter color. It's not gonna look like a sky. Plus I can put subtone on it later on as well. Okay, I think it's still too pale. Yeah, so that's exciting. Maybe a little mark making of excuse me. Right, haven't painted much on this side. Can I paint it a little bit paler? Let's test it out in a moment. Well, okay, so my paint is less fresh now as I used it on the top surface. Okay, that's a little bit paler, but looks quite interesting, looks quite exciting. Good, a little mingle with that here. A little smudge. Love how the orange comes through the sides. Good, good, good. That's good, stay suggestive. That's good, smudge a little bit more. Okay, just let's straighten it up slightly. The paint just shifts the perception. We don't have to have overly perfect symmetry. It gives me an opportunity to stay less perfect. Yeah, that's maybe a bit too bright. Okay, good. Right, anything else slightly darker? I will need a smaller brush though. I want to paint my doors, openings for the windows. I think a little bit of violet, direct runny violet on top of existing colors. Maybe a little more ultramarine with it, maybe a little bit more buff titanium, violet. Okay, looks quite solid blue, maybe a hint more ochre. Maybe cadmium red. I haven't used cadmium red, but I think that's where it might come in. Okay. Just sharpening a tiny bit of some of the shadows. Not too much because we have a distant view. Let's focus on the larger areas first. Okay, that's a big smudge. I quite like that little one, that little window. I'll just preserve some of that then. Okay, let's see if I can make a very narrow stroke for. Okay, that's too thick paint. Okay, so look quite chunky, quite thick. So what I tend to do, I tend to work elsewhere and have a feel for the brush as it started giving me thinner strokes. Yeah, I'll come back to that area where I need it and maybe have improved strokes as the brush finds its way. Okay, so that's looking much more suggestive. Still looks a little bit precise, so I'm cleaning my brush. I might just go over it slightly so there will be less perfection in there. Okay, a bit more lost and found again edges. Okay, that looks too big blob. It's that sharpness is so strong. I'll use some paler color around it to tweak it then, if that didn't happen straight away. So again, leave it a little bit to rest. let's work on something else. Again, somewhat suggestive elements, maybe not too much. I quite like flatter surfaces. So let's just touch up suggestive windows. Yeah, that's better. Okay, I can tweak a little bit of white around that area. Right, if I overlook anything else around. Tiny bit more somewhere here. But playfulness is there. Don't need to put all the definitions. Right, I'm happy there. Let's just tweak this area with a little more paler paint. Thicker paint, I'm using some buff titanium, bit of ochre. There's a lot of paint around where I'm going to work. So using slightly lighter starting point on my brush will tweak the light in it. Okay, I think that quite enjoy that little stroke, but on a picture altogether, it just looks too strong. Even that looks already calmer. Okay, I think I might keep it even calmer. Okay, painted it all the way back. This is lovely just to get some details out, and that's what I wanted to by zooming in into our facade. Maybe I'll just keep it pale and just, I think that might be my decision. Instead of painting dark stained glass window, I'm painting a little lighter columns for it and unifying the light together. I think I'm liking that more for that front window. Right, tiny bit more paler light somewhere here to define a couple of shapes. Right, and I think I might stop on my facade without over busying it. Right, can I support these couple of lower lines with anything else on the side here? Okay, and maybe that straighter line as well. Okay. Yeah, let's stop at that for the facade. Couple of tweaks for the strokes for the sky to finalize the silhouette of it, and some big shapes for the greens, and we're done. Right, a little bit of sky, making sure my brush is clean. Okay, maybe I need to have some tips, otherwise I'll take a lot of ochre in there, and I need more sky blue. So let's have some fresh white and a hint of cerulean. Okay, that cerulean might be a bit too light in here, so I think I need to come back to my ultramarine here. But cerulean and ultramarine will give me a lovely color. Right. Couple of things to fine tune. Right, for example, here I would have liked to have a little bit more space for my triangle roof, a little bit narrower point somewhere here. So that's a lovely suggestion of the star here. Okay, this doesn't look like a star. Okay, that's a bit of a shape. Thicker paint will be easier to apply on the borders with our runnier or softer paint. So thicker paint will be advisable. Okay, you simply will be able to make an impact. Otherwise, we'll be dabbing, not much will be happening. Okay, a slightly lighter stroke here, I don't want to be all carefully placed. Sometimes it's nice to have that darkness moving about. Okay, maybe tiny bits of something suggesting narrower shape. Good, I'm happy with that. Maybe a slightly lighter dab here. Again, just varying that intensity of blue through. So they don't look too similar here. I'll make one slightly wider stroke. Okay, that's good. That's lovely and playful. Happy with that. Right, let's do now the grasses. I'll use a wider brush. Okay, and I'm gonna go for olive green. Maybe a hint of cadmium yellow, some white. Let's see if that's going to be quite light color. I can always tone it down, so I'm just going to top up my oil here. Let's mix that well. Let's have a big stroke. I think that would be lovely. Showing a bit of orange, showing a little bit of that green. I'm going to put a little bit more intensive green as well. Emerald green and yellow, so have a slightly darker tone to it as well. So I've got a bit of both. Okay. Bringing that across. Some of the big strokes coming over. Right, I forgot to paint a tiny bit of that building on the side. And I can also do with a similar colors as the facade for my path. Okay, so let's keep it blocks as blocks here, maybe a little bit of paler green for the distance. Let's see if these shadows will smudge along. Okay, that's how I, in a way, paint extra tree trunks. Just drag some color and then paint some paler, thinner strokes in between. And then tidy it at the bottom, and we'll have some more distant tree trunks. Okay, that's good. Right, and I wanted some darkness for the shadows here as well. So let's pick up any of the palette color or a little bit of extra green and ultramarine. If I keep it runny again, it will give me an exciting smudgy shape. So it's not going to stay perfectly perfect silhouette, but gives more of a smudge and soft appearance. I might keep that shadow turning down, following the surface here. Yes, it's kind of not, the tree is reasonably far away, so we don't have to paint precisely its direction or its silhouette. Okay, that is a lovely dark shadow, but I don't know if I want it so dark. Okay, I want maybe something else here. It looks too plain, but that looks a nice appearance of another possible shadow. So looking at my designs, looking at my small compositions for support, and rubbing some of that paint off the surface. It gives that lovely suggestion. Right, I can bring some paler color over the border here. So that's better. That's much better. Got more of a bold for it. Okay, that's all good. Good, good, good. Right, a quick shape of color for the path and the building here on the side. Okay, again, any palette color or buff titanium with a bit of violet or the blue, either will be good. Okay, I might just keep it suggestive. Okay, I need tiny bit more darkness. Okay, and that's my green brush. Could touch up a couple of borders of this building here as well. Again, keeping it more suggestive rather than perfect outlines for it. Good. That's lovely and playful. Do like some of the beautiful light strokes I developed, so I might just put another one to balance. Good, right, and now the path. Again, buff titanium, bit of ochre, any of your palette color. Okay, let's put perhaps not to forget some of the shadows from the trees. So if I'll start without shadows, arranging this path in darkness and light, perhaps making it less perfect in shape as well. Yeah, we want that slight imperfection. Okay, that's a little change. That's a little turn. Okay, that's a lovely feel for it. And I'm going to put a shadow, slightly darker tone. Again, where that shadow from the tree finished, I'm just going to put a little suggestion somewhere there and smudge it perhaps. So again, it's not too perfect in its recognition. If it doesn't come out too dark or becoming, actually for me it's becoming, if I make it darker, it will start looking odd. I'll put a little extra paler tone. Right, this shadow could definitely continue somewhere here. So for the top one, I'll put more paler color and mingle that. Okay, that's too precise. Okay, less precise. Just want to keep it more of a path-like appearance. Okay, that's better. And that's too pale. I did like a slight paler verge edge to it. Good. Less perfect borders here. Let's get rid of some of the sharper lines, just smudging the existing color. And I think I'm happy to stop. I could have put some buttercups, but I think it might take too much attention from my cathedral, my church, my Selby Abbey church. Let's put a couple of dots. Let's put a couple of white mixed with cadmium yellow. Let's put a couple of darker dots, and let's put a couple of paler yellow dots. I think that May, June look. So I mixed my cadmium yellow with a bit of white and with a small amount of cadmium red to have a slightly orangey look. So I'm going to have some deeper colors there first. And I just a couple of those dabs, suggestive dabs. Try not to apply them like polka dots of equal spacing, of equal appearance. I need to have more of a variety of gaps in between them. Okay, now clean color, because I'm picking up green from everywhere. So clean yellow, cadmium yellow and white now, as a little lit up dabs. Okay, constantly need that fresh color because it is a lot of thick green across. Okay, that's a lovely little cluster. And it is a cluster, it's not a polka dotty perfect row or perfect size of dabs as I've done on my palette. So I want more of that variety glistening into that light, appearing a bit more at a different level and height and size. That's more exciting. Maybe a bigger cluster of them right there. Just to balance that volume, I'm just going to put a couple of more here. Might be because there is more light there. I think it just takes enough attention. Might just take some of it off to calm the busyness to a flatter shape. Okay, that's better. They're not screaming as much. And some of these could be smudged as well to a simplified area as well. I'm tweaking very minor little shapes. And I'm happy to stop. Thank you very much for painting with me today. I hope you had fun and you still continue having fun while you finishing your piece. Enjoy the colors, but constantly think of our big 3-4 groups of tone, groups of color, and then slowly subdivide them as you go. Thank you very, very much for being with me, and I look forward to seeing your finished paintings.